Hi, this is Chris from Action Camera in Roseville, California, and I wanted to show you the new 150-500mm Tamron lens for the Sony system, direct to E-mount. It's one of their biggest lenses now, directly to the Sony E-mount, not having to go through any adapters, anything like that. This is a really exciting lens. It's very compact for what it can do. It's only a little over 8 inches long when it's zoomed out to 150. If you zoom into 500, it gets a little longer, but it's still under just about 11 inches, which isn't too bad. Very nice and lightweight. You can definitely handhold this. You can see we have it on a tripod here though. A few cool features here. It has the new VXD linear motor, which just means it's very fast, it's quiet, and it can really keep up with those fast moving subjects, because of course you're probably going to be using this for wildlife or sports, maybe at the racetrack, a lot of fun things. It has their great Tamron VC, the vibration control system. So you can handhold this down to lower shutter speeds and still get great sharp shots. It has the usual 3 settings there. If you're familiar with the Tamron system, we can post some information about that in the link below in this video. It also has a nice foot for a tripod, and it has built-in Arca Swiss. So you can see on this tripod here, it is directly on the tripod. There is no plate. You don't have to use the tripod plate if you have an Arca Swiss compatible tripod. So that's really exciting too. One other cool thing is they threw in a very short 75-degree rotation. So it's very quick with one hand to go from 150 to 500 millimeters. It's very sharp too, as you'll see in some of the sample shots in this video. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so let's take a look at some of the example shots we were able to do while we were playing with this really fantastic new lens from Tamron. I'm not a wildlife or a sports photographer typically, and that's the typical category you'd find this lens in, but I also wanted to show that you can use it for a lot of other stuff. And I actually had a lot of fun shooting with a focal range like this, not being a typical range that I use. I typically shoot portraits, mildly telephoto, or landscapes with a wide angle. But you can certainly do landscapes with a telephoto, which is actually quite a lot of fun to use that compression you get out of a 150 to 500 millimeter range. So for the first little bit, I actually went down to Davis. I only had a little bit of time, about 20 minutes while I was waiting for an appointment. And but because this lens is small and hand-holdable, I was able to just grab it and go and still get some really good shots. I didn't really use a tripod for most of the stuff I'm going to show you. The first one up, just to show what you can do with wildlife. Like I said, I'm not really a wildlife photographer, but I did take a picture of this duck that I happened to run across in the Davis Arboretum. One fun fact that I really liked about this lens is shooting wide open aperture, which is like, 6.7, 6.3 sometimes. It is very sharp, which is really cool. Sometimes on super telephotos, you don't get tack sharp photos at the extreme lengths wide open. And I found that this delivers great resolution. I was shooting on my personal Sony, my A7R III, which is a 42 megapixel camera, and I found that it handled the resolution very nicely. So the next one, also in Davis, is I just wanted to show how even at, I think this was about f6 something, 6.3, it can very much give you separation of background. These are just some flowers in the Arboretum, and I think this was close to 400 or 500 millimeters. We'll post that on the screen here, but it gives you great separation. You can actually do some really nice floral photography, and I'll show a little bit later that it can even be used for portraits very nicely, even though it is not like a 2.8 or 1.4 aperture. But we did get up to Donner Lake, and they have some really cool abandoned train tunnels that they've turned into trails up there. I didn't really get too many shots going into the tunnels. It was kind of a slog to get through the first tunnel. It was dripping in water a lot, and this lens is very weather sealed, so I wouldn't worry about it too much, but it handled the dark like a champ. So this is inside the tunnels, lots of graffiti, really fun place to hike. I recommend checking it out. It's pretty dark in there though, but I was able to handhold the lens the whole time. It was not really an issue. This one was normal shutter speeds. We'll post those on the screen, but I do have a couple I'm going to show next where we were actually down to about a 60th of a second and a 40th of a second, and I was still able to get some really sharp results out of that. Again, completely handheld, was not using a tripod or anything for these. So this is just some graffiti on one of the support posts, and this was, I believe, about 1/60th of a second. Now I wasn't zoomed into 500. I did test that too, and it worked very well, but this was closer to about 150 to 200 millimeters because it was very tight in there. So zooming into 500 didn't always work, and 150 millimeters was plenty of range to really get some details on the subject. The next one I'm going to show, is just some more artwork that they had in the tunnels, and this one was down to a 40th of a second, and I was still getting really good results at a 42 megapixel camera. So I think the vibration control, the stabilization is really, really excellent on this lens, which I like a lot because I don't like to have to lug around a tripod. Monopods can be nice sometimes too, but it can be really nice when you can just grab something and go, hand hold it, you know, and it is very lightweight for its class, so it's one of the best choices to bring on a hike. Last but not least, I just wanted to show a picture of my beautiful wife up there at the Donner Trails. This is before we went into the actual tunnels, and I just wanted to try shooting a quick portrait at about 150 millimeters. Of course, 70 to 200 is a great range for portraiture, so 150 works well. But even without a 2.8 aperture, you can see what the compression does. You can really blur the background, you can isolate the subject, cut a lot of the surrounding distractions out of the picture, and you can really do some beautiful portraiture with this. And the exciting thing is being able to go to even 400 and 500. Yeah, you can be pretty far away, but you can get some pretty unique results, which shows that you can use this outside of the traditional wildlife and sports photography realms, which is also excellent for. And you're going to get to see a little bit more of that in a second. I'm going to turn this over to Ellie, and she's going to go over her thoughts on the lens and some of the pictures that she's taken.
Hi everybody, my name is Ellie. I work here at Action Camera in Roseville, California, and I got to take the Tamron 150-500 down to San Francisco and Sausalito for some nice tests down by the ocean. I turned myself into a birder because I don't really do a lot of wildlife photography, so I decided to try my hand at it, and I took a lot of pictures of seagulls. I got one great blue heron, which I'm really proud of, and let's look at some examples of it. This picture is of a great blue heron. This was probably my greatest success when it came to the bird life. And then I took a lot of pictures of seagulls as well. So again, I'm not really normally a birder, but I felt like I could be with this lens. So it gave me a really great opportunity to try something that broke my mold. I also wanted to test a bit of how this rendered in extreme compression situations. So I got a picture of a seagull with a gentleman in the background on a rowboat, and you could tell what he's doing, which I think is really rad. And last but not least, I wanted to also prove that you can do landscaping with an incredibly long lens. So I took a couple of pictures of some of the houses on the hills in Sausalito, which are just beautiful. If you've never been, you should go, it's great. But you get to see how ominous almost those clouds look over these really beautiful mansions. And you get to see how great this lens performs on almost every level. So, highly recommend. Now let's truly see what this lens can do. Here are some examples from your friendly team at Action Camera.